welcome back. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. And today we're going to be talking about the new foundation from Givenchy. This is the Prisme Libre Skin Caring Glow Foundation, and this retails for $49 US. Right now it's available at Sephora. If there are any additional retailers, I'll also leave them down below in the description box. This foundation, I have shade 1N95. It's 30 milliliters. It has a 12-month shelf life, and it's made in France. Now, just a little bit of information from the back of the box here. There is 12-hour glow, 24-hour hydration, 12-hour wear with a blurring effect. And according to Givenchy, it says, Prisme Libre Skin Caring Glow Foundation takes care of your skin and enhances its natural beauty with a radiant, light diffusing finish. Its light, melting texture is enriched with an advanced glow complex, a water infused with skincare actives that guarantees a fresh and light-drenched complexion for 12 hours. Day after day, the skin becomes more beautiful and more luminous. The skin's clarity appears improved and its texture refined. The complexion looks evenly transparent while imperfections are visibly reduced. Let the skin breathe. Buildable coverage, non-comedogenic. And this was tested, it was an instrumental test conducted on 33 volunteers. So just some things to note there. And I figured today what we would do is we're going to do a full face of Givenchy. So I have been wearing this for several days. This is not a first impressions. I have a wear test that I filmed with me wearing it with powder. So it's a powdered wear test. And then I've also tested it, and I didn't film this, but I also tested it without powder. So I'll talk about the differences with that, how long it seems to hold up during the day, and all of that. So I also wanted to kind of use a full face of Givenchy products. So I have a new eyeshadow palette, new to me. It's not new to Givenchy. I think these came out last year. I have number 904. And this is one of the 9pan palettes. So I figure we would test this out as well, and blush and lipstick and so forth. So I've got mostly everything needed for a full face. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna bring you in closer for the application. All right, so for this foundation, you know, the cap, it's on very tightly, just so you know. It's very secure, click top cap. So you need a little bit of force to pull that off. You do have a pump dispenser. And this is how much comes out in one pump. You can see that it is going to be a thin, but not completely serum-like texture. Now, I do not have any primer or anything on today, just skincare. And I'm just going to use the Kojando buffing brush. I'm gonna pounce a little bit in. Now, this does have a scent. It has a floral scent to it that you would have smelled in other Givenchy products. It's their normal scent. I would say it is fairly scented. It does dissipate, but you know, the amount of scent is on level with like Dior and Chanel products. So it's definitely a fairly strongly scented product. So this is one sheer layer here. We're gonna build up a little bit. Now, I have to say that this foundation I consider more of a light to light medium foundation. I've put on several layers before, and once you start putting on more layers, it, you know, starts to not really look as good. It doesn't really hold up quite as well, meaning like once it starts to wear down, you just notice more separation and so forth. So I don't recommend tons of layers of this foundation to try to get more coverage. I would kind of stop at like a light medium level personally. And this is pretty much the level of coverage that I like with that. And this is how much I have. Now, ideally, I would like to have more coverage here on my cheeks. But again, this is kind of a more sheer foundation. It's basically a step up from a tinted moisturizer. So it's kind of like a light coverage foundation, but yeah, just a little bit higher than a tinted moisturizer with coverage, in my opinion. So just so you can see closely, this is what everything looks like up close. I think it gives a nice finish, and I'm gonna let this sit I'm going to show you guys the wear test and application for the day with powder now. And while we're letting this sit, I'm going to show you how it kind of sinks into the skin. All right, so on my face, I have the Sorbitan Perfectionist Primer. And we've got the Givenchy Prisme Libre Skin Caring Glow Foundation here. This is one pump. Looks like a good color. Taking the Chikuhodo T11. See that it's kind of like sheer coverage on its own. Just gonna kind of dab this in here. All right, so this is the finish. Got a little bit left on my hand, so let's just add in a little bit more to the cheeks. So this is the foundation. I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes. I'm gonna do my eye makeup and we'll see if this oxidizes or anything. All right, so the foundation has sat for a while. I don't think the color has changed at all. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of oxidation. That's pretty unlikely not to have anything at all, but I think it's a good match. So happy with it. This is how it has finished. I have to say my cheek feels dry to the touch. There's no like tackiness or anything to it. Maybe like a little bit, but you know, it really feels much more matte than it appears. So there's like a radiance that comes out. So we're just going to set this with a little bit of powder. I'm going to go in with the Coco-Caprylate Brightening Moisture Powder, kind of like on the high points, you know, kind of like more as a brightening, highlighting powder. So in the center and on my cheeks. And then we're going to also use the beige. So I'm taking the Chikuhodo F03 today. And you can see that that really gives like a brightening effect. And then for the rest of the face, I'm going in with the blurring beige. All right, I just wanted to give you a 5-hour update on the foundation. And again, this is powdered, but everything is holding up well so far. I'm gonna bring you in closer so you can see. Please excuse my hair, it's a windy day today, but on my cheeks, I have the Givenchy foundation and I have it set with the the Coco-Caprylate Brightening Moisture Powder. So I have a mix of the pink and the beige, which is down a little bit lower. And this is how everything has held up so far. So take a look at all the lines. And actually, just for reference, this is the same Chanel Rouge Coco Bloom that I had applied 5 hours ago. And I haven't really eaten much or anything, but this is how it wears down. So it kind of loses that like shiny sheen per se, but look at all that pigment still. All right, I'll see you in a bit. All right, so it's been about 11 hours. I know I look like a mess. I'm very tired, but I'm going to bring you in closer and show you the foundation. From a distance, though, you can see that there has been some wear on my cheeks. So here's the foundation. And this is actually the same Rouge Coco Bloom that I applied this morning. I have not reapplied all day. It remained pretty pigmented even after the shine wore off. So I just want to point out over here on my cheeks, you can see where it has worn off and how it looks kind of patchy here now. And again, This was all set with powder, so I'll also be testing it without any powder as well. All right, so I hope that was helpful. We'll talk a little bit more about the foundation in a few minutes, but I figure first we'll test out the eyeshadows. So this here is the box. This is made in Italy. It's 8 grams. It has a 6-month shelf life. And I wanted to show you here on the back, they identify which shades are soft mattes, satins, pearly, and metallic. So if you're taking a look at this, M is for soft matte, S is for satin. We have P for pearly and M for metallic. You can also see a little diagram here of the enclosed brush and how you can basically clip it in to make a longer brush. So let's take a look at the actual palette. This here is the palette, and this is similar to like the Givenchy packaging on blushes and so forth. You have a mirror here, it says Givenchy at the bottom. You know, I have to say, I like how domed this is compared to some other things that we have. Let's take a quick look at the brushes, and you can see here that you actually have divided slots for both halves of the brushes. Now, I always wash my brushes before using them, so I am not going to use these brushes today, but let's just see how they clip together like that. That's actually, you know, that's cute. It's really handy. This is definitely something you can take with you, like traveling or something. So you can see this one here doesn't have a lot of flex or give. This is going to be great if you want to try to apply like a metallic shadow to kind of tap it on. And then this is going to be more like a crease brush. It has like an oval ferrule here, so it's not rounded. So you can use this for this type of application as well as in the crease. And this is the palette I picked up. Let's start by swatching these. This is the top row here. Oh, that light pink you can barely see. Everything goes on softly and smoothly. Second row. I really like this blue purple metallic. This is a light lavender shade here. Again, very light, and this green is incredibly light also. Okay, and this is the bottom row. Okay, so this is the one that's actually the purple metallic shade here. So this one here is actually this. So you can see that there's like blue tints and so forth to it. I have to say these more like matte shades are incredibly light. So let's see how everything applies on the eye. Now, according to the back of the box, you should have 12-hour wear with these with no creasing. So we're going to try it without any primer or anything today. I'm going to start off with the shade in the middle, this soft lavender, and this is the Refer 15. Just going to dust this all over the crease and up to the brow for a little brightening. Okay, now I'm going to take the same brush into this soft taupey shade and just going to get a little bit of this, and this time I'm putting this in the crease, but I'm not going up. I'm just going to add a little bit here. See if we can even see it. You can see a little bit of a difference, but honestly, it's not that much. Okay, I'm going to take the Synergy Soft Shader into the light green. These green shades are why I picked up this palette. And you can see it's going to be definitely a soft matte, meaning soft as in light. The formula of all of these feels very nice. I don't have any issues with the texture. I have a little bit of kick up in the pan, but nothing significant, nothing that's problematic. But you can see that these colors here are going to be very, very light. So here's the green. Can you see it? All right, and next I want to go into this shade on top of the green. So I'm using the soft shader again, wiped it off, and I'm just going to lightly pat this on. I want it to be more of a veil. So I'm lightly patting it on. I started in the middle, so I would have more pigment there. And then just kind of dusting it over. Let's add a little bit more of this, actually. Okay, I'm going to go into this top glittery shade a little bit as well and just add a little bit of this in the outer corner. And I'm just tapping lightly because I just want a little change of the color here. So as you might expect, the glittery shades, of course, are going to have a little bit more kick up in the pans. This is going to be it for the top look today. And let's just add something to the lower lash line. Taking the Chikuhodo F07, I'm just going to go into this taupe shade here. And I'm just going to add this to the lower lash line. I don't want a ton of color, but I just want something to make it look a little bit more finished. All right, so I'm just taking the Sonia G Soft Shader again and just kind of blending that into it a little bit. Just gonna add a little bit more of this sparkly shade on top here. And going back with the Rev 15 and just buffing that. Okay, I'm gonna add some mascara and then let's take a look at this foundation. All right, so this is the foundation after having sat for about 10 minutes or so. And, you know, it still feels like I have something here. You know, there's a little tackiness to it. It feels moist, you know, like you had just applied a moisturizer. And you can see that it's glowy, but it's not greasy looking. So I think that is something really nice about the finish. Now, as I mentioned during the wear test, I have used this powdered and I've also tried it non-powdered. And I have to say that the way it wears off looks a little bit better non-powdered because, and that's actually mostly due to the powder, you know, when it starts to like kind of separate or fade, how you can see like some of the powder clumps. That's what doesn't look as attractive. So it looks a little bit better when it's wearing off when you don't have powder. However, I personally like to have a little powder on here just because I feel a little bit more secure adding like blush and so forth, like a powder blush without actually like shifting anything here. So I'm taking the Chikuhodo Lunar Near brush. This is the Givenchy Prisme Libre in #1 Mousseline Pastel. And I didn't add any under eye concealer or anything today. Just want to show you what the violet shade will do for that. Let's see here. So you can see that the powder itself has a blurring effect and the violet shade does help disguise some of the darkness here. So just added a little bit of that there, and then I'm going to take whatever's left in the lid, add that to my brush, and lightly dust this on. Now, I personally think this is one of the best setting powders. I love the Prisme Libre powders. I have a few shades of this, none of the newer ones, but I have like some of the like limited edition ones and so forth. So yeah, I love these powders. I have a couple of Givenchy blushes, but this one is my favorite. Now, this is the spring packaging from last year, and I absolutely love it. I've actually used this blush a ton, but you can't tell. But this is a permanent shade. So it was limited edition packaging, permanent shade. This is 03 Spice. Taking the Chikuhodo F03 brush in here, and I like to swirl both shades together. And let's apply the blush here. So this way, with a fluffy brush like this, is going to give you a really soft wash of color. And then I'm going to show you a firmer brush. This is the Sonia G Classic Cheek. So we're going to use this brush, and you can see that it's firmer. It's going to pick up product very easily. I just want to show you what the application looks like with something a little bit denser. Okay, so you can see just tapping it on already, I've gotten to like the same point here. So if you're using a brush like this, you can really build this color up. So you can go in very lightly and softly with a fluffy brush, but this color can definitely be much more buildable. You can get it deeper than this. That being said, I still think, you know, it's a light blush in general. I think Givenchy's formulas in general are pretty light. And for finishing powder, we're just going to try out this lavender powder here. So I haven't opened this yet. Let's see. How do we open this? I'm not really sure. Oh, you twist it off. Oh, it's a cute little puff in the lid. And here is the powder. So there is a piece of plastic here. So this is cute, you know, this will sink down and you can like kind of puff it on. I would rather use a brush, so I'm actually just gonna decant some, oops, didn't mean to decant that much, but got some here on my hand here. This is the PFO. Now this powder, this purple, is the same purple that I use under my eyes. It's just sold separately here. So I'm using the PFO brush from Chikuhodo. Just gonna get the rest of the powder off my hand. All right, so that's gonna be that. And let's see here. For lips, I picked out two colors. We're gonna look at either Rose Alibi, which is this one here. And this is the Rouge Interdit lipsticks from Givenchy. So they come, you know, you got this beautiful ribbon on the outside and you pull this out. And I do think they are reformulating lipsticks now because I had a bunch of these on clearance in the fall. This one here is number 6, Rose Nocturne. So let's look at this one here. So we have Alibi and Nocturne. And I think today I'm gonna go with Rose Nocturne. All right, I'm gonna push you back a bit. All right, so this is my final face of Givenchy, and you can see that even though I use powder on top of this foundation, you still have a glow coming through, and I think it looks really nice. Now, a few things I'd like to know about this foundation is it does not last 12 hours. They say that the wear time is 12 hours. I would say maybe 8. So then I definitely see like some fading and so forth. You saw during the wear test that, you know, it did kind of fade dramatically by the time we got to 11 hours. But I'd say around 7-8 hours, you're going to start noticing that it doesn't look quite as present as it did before. Now I have to say, I didn't really notice any like powder pockets or anything like that at that point when I was doing the wear test. And when I did it without any powder, the fading was really pretty imperceptible up until, you know, all of a sudden, you really kind of notice it around 7-8 hours in. But I have to say that it faded nicely. So when you do a close up with that, you don't really see any like breakup of the product. You know, I can just see so much more of my redness peeking through at that time, if that makes sense. So it definitely does fade. Hydration wise, I have to say that it's very comfortable on the skin. My skin feels hydrated all day. And I like the texture with the powder on just because it doesn't have that tacky feeling to it. But when you don't put the powder on, let's say, for example, I used cream products that day, and you know, it actually kind of sinks in. It feels comfortable. It doesn't feel like it's going to come off if you touch it. It's not that kind of stickiness. Like, for example, with the Shiseido foundation, I felt like that one never really sunk in, and anytime I touched it, it would move. And the Givenchy, you know, after you give it 20 minutes or so, it does feel like it has sunken in, and that's not going to happen. So even if you don't powder it, it still feels like it has kind of set into your skin a little bit. It doesn't feel quite as moist as it does upon initial application, but some of that like hydrating feeling, it still remains. So overall, my thoughts on this foundation, I think it looks nice. I think it is a great step if you are looking for something a little bit more than a tinted moisturizer or BB or CC cream can provide. Provides a little bit more coverage than that, yet it still remains really natural, and it gives this nice luminosity to the skin. Now, me personally, because I like to cover more of the redness in my skin a little bit, you know, I would prefer something that has a little bit more coverage than this. And I also wish that it lasted a little bit longer than it does. However, that's not to say that it's not a nice foundation in its own right, provided you keep those other things in mind. So if you're looking for something that has slightly more coverage than a tinted moisturizer, and you don't care that it doesn't really last 12 hours, then this is a good option. Keep in mind it is fragranced, so there's that. If you're sensitive to fragrances, you might want to miss on this one, but you know, it's fragrance, it's a floral fragrance, it dissipates. So after I have it on, I don't really notice it. So I would say it dissipates a little bit faster than some others that I have tried, such as the Chanel Sublimage, where I can smell that one a little bit longer than I can this one in particular. The level of fragrance though that you smell when you're applying it is pretty similar. So overall, I think it is an okay foundation. I would say there are pros and there are cons to it, and I would definitely recommend, kind of weighing those pros and cons to see what you are looking for in a product before you decide to take the plunge. Now, their color range, they actually had quite a few colors. I really wasn't sure what shade to go with, and it's so new that, the foundation.com and so forth, they didn't have it yet. So, I ended up just kind of playing with the Sephora foundation finder, and I got like a different match depending on what foundation I put in. So I ended up just, taking the best guess with this one. This is 1N95. It's the fair neutral. They also have, I think, an ultra fair or something like that, and a light and so forth. So I actually think that it worked out well. I like this color match. Oxidation is not major with this. And we are going to do some foundation swatches, but real quickly before we do that, let me just give you my thoughts on these other items that we use today. Now, starting with the lipstick, I personally really like the Givenchy lipsticks. They're thin, but not oily feeling on the lips. They're very comfortable. They have great colors, and I think they're really nice. Plus, I think the packaging is cute. So they're a lipstick that I think is more underrated in the beauty community than it deserves. I think it's a really nice product. I have quite a few of these. I really enjoy them, and I picked up quite a few when they were on clearance last fall. So I have these. I also have other types of Givenchy lipsticks, but in general, I have to say that their formulas are really good all around. Moving on to the lavender powder, we'll have to test this more, but I really like it. I knew I would like it because I like, that little quadrant under my eyes, but I did really enjoy using it as a finishing powder as well. And it's very expensive for what you get here. So, I'll have to use it more to see how worth it I think it is, and compare it with the Fenty one that I just recently picked up, and the Gucci as well. But I do really like this. I really like the finish of it and how it feels on my skin, how it sits. There's definitely a little bit of a blurring effect with this powder. I hope you could see that through the camera, but I really like that so far. For blush, as I mentioned, this is one of my favorite blushes. I really like this. Every time I do like top 5 favorites or whatever, this seems to make it into my blushes. I think it's great, and it is really buildable. So if you have a deeper skin tone and you're interested in a shade like this, just use a denser brush, and it's not hard to get the color. If you use a light fluffy brush, it's going to be really hard for you to work with. But if you use something like the Classic Cheek that I use, or perhaps the Sonia G Smooth Buffer, something with dense fibers, then you can pick up plenty of pigment and apply it very easily without having to go back and forth a lot on your cheeks to kind of get that color where you want it and the intensity that you want it. The Prisme Libre powder in general, as I mentioned, I really like them. They now have a ton of different color options for different skin tones. I have been using the Mousseline Pastel for a couple of years, and then there's another one that I have that I like that I think is discontinued. It's like a white powder, but in general, I think these are really nice. I think they are very underrated, and if you are looking for a powder that doubles as setting and finishing powder, I think this is a really great option, and it's definitely one of my favorite loose powders. Moving on to the eyeshadow palette. I think the eyeshadow palette is very pretty. The 9-pan design is pretty. The colors, they swatch okay, but I don't think it's that great. So I would pass on the eyeshadow palette. I have no problem with soft eyeshadows. I like them. I like some that are not super pigmented and so forth, but I just feel like these I don't know, it's almost like it's filler with a tiny bit of color, if that makes sense. So I feel like usually when I use something that's soft and light, I don't know, it just feels like even if I kept layering that, I would be able to build up a little bit more color. And you know, it's really just that it's a soft light pigment. Whereas these, you know, yes, they have soft light pigments, but they seem even lighter and more sheer than others that I've used. So I think it's only okay. I don't think it's bad. You know, it depends what look you're going for. If you really like light, soft colors and you don't care that it's not really all that buildable, then I think, you know, this would definitely be something that may interest you. And they have some great color options in their palettes, but you know, I think it's only okay. I do think these metallics will look nice wet. I'm going to show you some swatches of those real quickly. So these are the 3 metallic shades wet instead. So you can see that they definitely go on more intensely. And I have to say, I really like their metallics and their shimmers. I think these are gorgeous shades. I definitely want to play with them more. I just wish that their mattes were not quite as sheer as they are. I think they have the right idea with going with sheer light mattes like that. But there's just something about the particular formula of those ones that even though it feels nice and soft going on, it just doesn't feel like there is enough of a color payoff, even for what, you know, in my mind, I think they are trying to achieve. Now, these here, though, I think are absolutely gorgeous, and I think they are going to be really stunning on the eyes when applied wet. And you can see how much better they look wet versus dry. Now, one thing I would like to know is all of the eyeshadow colors, they actually, you know, they have a nice texture to them. None of them feel like extra powdery or dry or anything like that. Mine all feel nice and soft, and you know, the metallics feel a little bit creamy to the touch. So they definitely have, you know, a nice texture to them. So let's go ahead and compare some shades with this foundation. I'm going to be using this arm today, and this is the Givenchy in 1N95. Next, we're looking at the Guerlain L'Essentiel. This is the High Perfection matte one. My glow one, it needs to be tossed. So, but you can see that they are fairly similar. The Givenchy is going to be a little bit more beige versus more yellow in the Guerlain. And you can see just by looking at these how much more sheer the Givenchy is in general. Clé de Peau Radiant Fluid Matte Foundation. And this shade here is I-10. I'm not sure if I mentioned all the shades. So again, we're going to start at the top. We've got the Givenchy 1N95. This is the Guerlain L'Essentiel High Perfection in 00N. Clé de Peau Radiant Fluid Matte in I-10. Chanel Les Beige Healthy Glow in BR12. Chanel Sublimage L'Essence de Teint in BR12. Now this one will oxidize a couple of shades on me. Chantecaille Future Skin Gel in Porcelain. Kojando Moisture Foundation in 012. This is the Givenchy, this is the Teint Couture City Balm, and this is shade N104. I'm going to put the new Givenchy right down next to that one as well. So here's the new Givenchy in N195. So you can see that it's just a little bit more ivory than the N104. I'm going to put a fresh swatch of the Givenchy right here so you can see the amount of oxidation that has occurred. So it's not too bad. All right, so from the top, we have a fresh swatch of the Givenchy Prisme Libre foundation in 1N95. This is the original swatch of it. Then next up, we have the Guerlain High Perfection foundation in 00N. Followed by the Clé de Peau Radiant Fluid Matte in I-10. You can see how much that one has changed. Then we have the Chanel Le Beige Healthy Glow Foundation in BR12, followed by the Sublimage L'Essence in BR12. Then we have the Chantecaille Future Skin Gel in Porcelain and the Kojendo Moisture Foundation in 012, followed by the Givenchy City Balm in N104 and the new Givenchy Prisme Libre in 1N95. I hope this was helpful. Overall, I would have to say that this foundation is nice for a lightweight foundation. Again, as long as you're not looking for super long wear with this, but I do think that it gives the skin a nice touch, and it's something that I'll probably reach for more during the warmer months, the spring and summer and so forth, because I do think it gives a really nice finish to the skin. However, it's not going to be one of my favorites. And if you have tried this, I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Let me know what you think of this down below. And as always, have a great day. Stay safe and healthy. I'll see you very soon.